Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me on another edition of CBT Now. On today's show, we're continuing the conversation on the U.S. Appeals Court decision to overturn the FTC's cars rule. While a win for dealers, there are still plenty of regulatory considerations to keep in mind. Joining me now is Shannon Robertson, Executive Director of AFIP, who is the Association of Finance and Insurance Professionals. Thank you so much, Shannon, for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Sure. So this is, what was your first initial reaction when you heard about this?
I was surprised. I was at NADA the day before the announcement, talking with NADA over what are we going to do when the judge rules on behalf of the FTC. So we were going through best case, worst case scenarios, next step. I think we all hoped this would be the decision.
Yeah.
I personally did not think this would be the decision, but we are all happy with the decision.
Yeah, of course.
That helps.
Of course. Yeah, there's no question. What were some of the biggest concerns that F&I professionals would have if the rule had gone into effect?
So the rule itself, the vehicle shopping rule itself, and I think in its initial concept had some good things in there. The concern for the F&I sales managers, desking managers, is the increase in disclosure requirements that we're going to heavily burden the dealer, which in turn burdened the customer, right? I think the biggest argument we all had is the rule itself helped with transparency, but in application was a burden in time frame and could actually lead to customer confusion with the amount of additional paperwork required.
Gotcha. And what compliance risks should dealers be mindful of right now?
So I think it's important to understand that the rule has been vacated, but the rule has not gone away. They have asked the FTC to go back, and if they're going to implement the rule, follow the actual process by giving advance notice. You know, with a new chairman, you know, with Andrew Ferguson in charge, we don't anticipate that rule to be resubmitted. My joke is I think they're going to take it and go put it in the storage, you know, on a storage shelf, and it's just going to sit there and we won't hear about it again.
Right.
However, the fear from my standpoint is now that this rule's been vacated, what are the states going to do?
Yeah.
You know, what we've normally seen in previous previous Trump administration is that the state attorney generals in the states became more aggressive on their rule passing. And we had already heard from the state associations that if the FTC did not rule in favor of the FTC, then some of our more aggressive attorney generals would seek to pass their own version at a state level.
Okay. So that's a big concern then, for sure.
That is a big concern. I think I would rather 5 new rules by the FTC than 26 different state interpretations of the cars rule.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, we'll see what happens at the state level. I mean, this is all new information, but I think to answer your question, the reason why the rule was passed was an increased amount of consumer complaints.
Sure.
And at a dealership level, we have to understand what the purpose of the rule was trying to do and make sure that we had clear transparency with our customers.
Yeah, very
from a regulatory standpoint, we have to keep applying the concept of that rule. Are we transparent with our customers?
Right. And much like we saw years back with the CFPB ruling, where they came in hard on dealers and financing and what have you, and in some cases they were justified, in others they were a little bit, out of step there. But I think it was a huge wake-up call for dealers to say, hey guys, we better be on our best behavior here, and because consumers and lawmakers are aware, let's say, of some of the wrongdoing that might take place at some dealerships, right?
Absolutely. So it's important to understand the new rule was going to give dealers actual rules they have to follow.
Right.
What dealers can't forget about is that the FTC and your state attorney generals can assess fines based under the UDAP violation, unfair and deceptive acts and practices.
Okay.
So even though some of these rules did not pass, if your dealer still engages in some of these activities, you could be fined for that being an unfair and deceptive act or practice. And if you look at the FTC over the last 6 months, what have we seen? 5 FTC violations for dealers,
That's right.
violating some aspect of a UDAP. So we have to understand that UDAP is still in effect, even though we do not have a vehicle shopping rule in effect.
Sure, sure. We know the impact that it's got with dealers and finance companies and such. What does this mean for consumers?
Great question. Hopefully the dealers that are not being transparent see the push by the FTC to enforce those that are not being transparent, and they apply a level of transparency, whether that be in advertising online, whether that be in upfront pricing, concerning aftermarket products being voluntary, right? We hope that they understand that they need to be transparent in that to help provide a better customer experience.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, with this rule came a lot of publicity. So now maybe consumers are that much more aware of this whole situation, right?
We would hope so. I mean, we do, AFIP does, we have 3 or 4 trainers, each doing about 80 classes a week or a year. I apologize, about 80 classes a year per person. And one of the questions we ask when we teach is, are you aware of the CARS rule? And we were shocked by the number of people that had no knowledge or had ever heard of the CARS rule. So my concern is if a lot of the F&I and salespeople we talked to didn't know of the CARS rule, probably a lot of the consumers were not aware of it as well. I think it became more popular or more opinionated from a dealer principal level than anything else.
Sure, sure. Yeah, very, very good point. Do you think we'll see similar regulations proposed again in the future?
At the state level.
At the state level?
You know, remember the FTC passed the junk fee rule a couple months ago, and the junk fee rule exempted auto dealers because they thought that the CARS rule would go into effect, which would have covered junk fee. So I think that since the auto dealers are not covered under the current junk fee rule, even though it's still a UDAP violation, I think we'll see our states come out with their own junk fee rule that applies to the automotive dealers.
Sure, sure. What's on your radar for 2025 with dealers and helping them navigate?
It's a great question. It's in chaos right now. We were writing new exams and new materials ready to go with the CARS rule. I think what our focus is for 2025 is we're looking at the enforcement actions for the last 6 months, and what we're providing to our dealers is a case study of these FTC enforcement fines, what were dealers fined for that are not written violations that fall under UDAP, and what policies dealers need to have in place to protect them moving forward with the focus on transparency.
Yeah, for sure. Shannon Robertson, Executive Director at AFIP, Association of Finance and Insurance Professionals. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Very much appreciate all of your valuable insights to dealers.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.